Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, there is a big focus on data-driven decision-making in the world of business right now. And we finally replaced that loudest voice in the room or strongest personality in the room deciding the business strategy for the next 12 months to 5 years, because that's what their gut is telling them. And as a result, data analytics is now driving business growth. So today, I wanted to dive into that subject a little bit deeper. So I invited Nitin Aggarwal, Vice President of Data Analytics at a company called the SmartCube. What a cool name for a company that is. But we're going to be discussing how to use data analytics to drive growth. And we'll also hopefully feature some case studies and examples of real-life situations in retail and CPG. But I don't want to talk and reveal too many spoilers. I know people can be quite sensitive about spoilers in this digital age. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the greater Chicago area so we can speak with Nitin now about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Neil. My name is Nitin Aggarwal, and I'm the Vice President for Data Analytics at the SmartCube, which is a global analytics organization headquartered in London. I lead the analytics business in North America, working closely with clients, helping them drive profitable revenue growth using data analytics. I started my career with the SmartCube in early 2013, so almost 9 years, and really built the entire analytics practice grounds up, which included setting up or scaling operations in 3 different continents and taking all major decisions related to people, process, technology, and analytics capability development. And in my current role, as I said, I kind of wear a dual hat where I look after both growing the existing business, but also really understanding business problems that companies are dealing with and how analytics can help solve those.
Excellent. And you said that your journey with the SmartCube began 9 years ago, but I'm going to take you back even further than that. I mean, can you remember can I ask that you share your origin story of where your passion for tech came from and how that world of technology and data collided and ultimately what put you on this path?
Yeah, absolutely. And, my entry into tech was accidental, as I believe has been the case with many other folks that I've spoken to in this industry. I come from a family of a number of serial businessmen, and but I wanted to do and pursue engineering because all my friends wanted to be engineers. So which meant I took a lot of science courses in high school, including computer science. And I just fell in love with that subject, especially coding in C++. When I joined engineering college, and even when I was doing, even though I was doing electrical engineering, I continued to code. And I did my major project in my final year. I made a typing tutor in C++, roughly 6,000 to 8,000 lines of code with a lot of graphics. And that helped me land a job with Computer Sciences Corporation. At Computer Sciences Corporation, which is really where my professional career started about, almost 18 years back, I was really exposed to the whole world of data and how business applications can help capture tremendous amounts of data and a lot of variety of data, and how databases store them, and companies can perform various routines to extract, transform, and load data, and so on and so forth. I worked with computer sciences for a few years, but really wanted to broaden my horizon to understand how businesses really use technology in a more broader sense to drive growth. And hence I decided to go to business school. Back at that time, business schools didn't really have any specific concentrations in analytics, but I did take courses in statistics and business intelligence. and joined a company which at that time was a Fortune 50 retailer called Sears Holdings. And that opened the doors of analytics to me, right? So data was I got a lot of exposure to data in my first job. And then my first job out of business school, I got exposed to analytics because I, either myself or working with internal analytics teams or agencies, worked on things such as customer lifetime value models, upsell, cross-sell, loyalty analytics, operations analytics, to either inform business strategies or really implement certain strategic initiatives that the company had identified. I've been on that path ever since, working in for companies, either with the company or as a service provider, as analytics becomes pervasive and a board level topic.
It's a great journey you've been on. And whenever I ask that question about an origin story, I think a lot of people think about comic book characters, etc. But ironically, after nearly 2,000 interviews, one of the things that I've learned is that so many of people's journeys in tech were complete accidents or moments of serendipity, just like those comic book characters, really, isn't it? Everything kind of happens and puts you in the right place at the right time.
It is, and then on the other end of the spectrum, I've got some friends who wanted to be engineers, only to realize that that's not where their passion lies, and they went onto the art side or music or whatnot. So I think it all works out by itself.
Absolutely. I think it's so important to share stories like this as well, because I think we put so much pressure on young kids now that what you're studying for now is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. But I think we're all trying to find our own way. But
certainly.
That path led you to the SmartCube, a global provider of strategic research and analytics solutions, addressing the needs of businesses in today's intelligence age. But for people that are hearing about the SmartCube for the first time, they're probably thinking, wow, what a cool name for a business, first of all. But can you tell the listeners a little bit more about what that means and the kind of problems that you're solving for your customers?
Yeah, at the SmartCube, we work with many of the world's leading companies operating in CPG, retail, life sciences, or the industrial sectors, which includes 30 of the FTSE 100 and many Fortune 500 companies. And all these companies, right, are going concerns and want to grow revenues or optimize costs to maximize shareholder value. One of the key things that companies are trying to do in order to achieve this is harnessing the power of data. It could be internal data that companies have, and that the massive amounts of it and growing at a very rapid pace. So things like, anytime you swipe a card at the POS, there are certain data fields that are captured. Anytime you browse a company's website or place an order, there's a lot of data that is captured. Anytime to use a coupon in a store, data is captured. So there are so much data that is being captured within the company's systems. And then there is external data. So things such as social media chatter, macroeconomic indicators, weather data, weather patterns, competitor data. All that is external data that can also be incredibly powerful and useful if used properly, and especially in conjunction with internal data. So the SmartCube, we help companies answer strategic and tactical questions by really harnessing the power of both these kind of data sources to identify insights that they can act upon, and insights that are customized to business's context. Right. So let me give you a few examples. Companies spend literally millions and millions of dollars to create awareness and to develop a particular brand. How do they decide how much of those dollars should go into TV ads or radio spots or direct marketing or Facebook or Google advertisements or whatnot? Analytics, we help companies really optimize how much dollars to spend, what channel, for what kind of spots, what duration should those ads run for, how frequently should those be run, so that in order for them to maximize the impact of those, maximize sales, and maximize marketing ROI. Once you've done your marketing and you've acquired customers, how do you really keep all those customers within your kind of business? So we help predict which customers are at a high risk of churning, and within those, should you actually spend equal amount of time trying to retain all those, or are there some that are more high value and hence you should be spending more time to retain, and it's okay to let go of some of those customers, right? Companies, in order to serve customer preferences or their tastes, introduce new products. Do companies really understand that these new product introductions are really leading to net incremental sales? Or is it just that demand from some of their existing products has simply transferred over to this new product, right? In which case, maybe it was not that great of an idea to launch this new product, right? Just share a couple more. What price changes or promotions actually work, right? So sometimes you may go to a grocery store. You may see, there is cheese which is on a promotion. I was thinking of buying it next week. Might as well buy it now. So now in this case, did the promotion really actually work to drive more sales, or all it did was to pull forward the demand only for that demand to go down next week, as an example, right? So those are all very important, multi-million-dollar questions that we help answer, and some even bigger, right? Where should you open your next retail store? How much space should you allocate to, let's say, the kids' clothing department in that store? So these are just a snapshot of the kind of questions that we help companies answer, and by having access to these answers kind of real time and at their fingertips, business teams can actually spend their time making decisions, so the decisions are quicker and faster. It establishes a culture of data-based experimentation, which has proven to lead to better business outcomes, and eventually, leading to a higher ROI from analytics and technology investments, and that just helps companies continue to address the right questions in the right way.
And I think for most people listening all over the world, they're beginning to dread that moment when all those Cyber Monday and Black Friday emails start appearing. But it's not just for retail either. Any business, if they're offering a product or a service, are going to hop on the back of that. And every business is looking to bounce back as the world opens back up. So my question to you is, how could they better bounce back by using data analytics to drive that growth and that they've been missing over the last 12, 18 months?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Neil. It's not just for retail. It's really pervasive, right?
Yeah.
But in order to answer that question, I think it's important to look at some of the underlying dynamics, right? Dynamics in the market that have either emerged because of the pandemic and as the world begins to open up, or certain trends that got accelerated because of all this. So the reason it's important to look at those is companies who are able to circumvent or adapt their business and operating models to these changing dynamics can continue to thrive and continue to grow business in as the world begins to open up. And analytics has a big role to play in most of those to overcome most of those challenges, if not all. So what are those dynamics, right? So I'll talk about maybe a couple from the demand side and a couple from the supply side. On the demand side, as the pandemic started, lockdowns were put in, stores were closed. There was a massive acceleration of digital transformation, right? There are some studies that suggest that digital transformation accelerated by many years in a matter of 12 months. CPG companies were trying to go direct to consumer. They all set up their own D2C channel. Retailers were trying to move some of their offline sales to online so that they don't really lose out their customers to the likes of Amazon. And analytics had a big role to play in helping accelerate this transformation in terms of either setting up digital storefronts, stocking identifying what products to put up on those stores, connecting offline and online data to understand the customer journeys, and then of course from a driving personalization and the right pricing on these kind of digital storefronts. And we continue to see that acceleration on the digital side. As because of this digital acceleration, it's also important to understand the importance of last mile delivery, where the customers would be willing to pay extra for getting whatever categories to be delivered at the doorstep, or not. Similarly, there was because of the pandemic and as now things have started to open up, there were certain categories that saw a huge spike in demand and some which completely tanked. And while things have normalized to a certain extent, the headwinds or tailwinds still remain. All of this poses a massive problem from a supply and operations planning standpoint. And companies, by using sophisticated forecasting algorithms, can help better understand the demand across different channels, across different categories, different markets, and plan things better and continue to drive growth. If I move towards the supply side a little bit, there are huge supply chain disruptions, right? Earlier, it was because China closed down. Companies realized that they actually are too reliant on some of the, some countries for sourcing. Then there was, other supply chain shortages because there was a ripple effect. And what all of that meant is that companies had to really fulfill demand within this constrained supply environment. And there again, analytics can come in to help simplify assortment and reduce some of the complexity in the supply chains so that you don't lose customers and still continue to drive growth. And now, as we can all see, there is rising inflation. I think Kraft Heinz recently announced that high prices are here to stay. The same thing was announced in the latest, I think, quarterly results declared by Kimberly-Clark. And rising inflation means higher cost of raw material, cost of input, and eventually that will either have to be absorbed by the company or passed on to the customers. And all of that puts tremendous pressure on the margins. Again, analytics has a role to play as it can help zoom in on both pricing and promotions to make sure that companies continue to drive growth without necessarily impacting the bottom lines tremendously. So those are just a few ways, Neil, in which companies can continue to drive growth and how data analytics can help as the world starts to open up.
And you gave so many great points there. So I've got to ask, do you have any case studies or examples in retail and CPG that would just bring to life everything that we've talked about so far?
Certainly. And there are actually many, but I'll stick to three, which I believe have driven a lot of value for clients and which we continue to see a lot of traction for. So first, is around demand forecasting. I briefly touched on that. So one of the largest fresh food manufacturers in the world was seeing, again, tremendous shift in demand across categories as consumers started working from home. There was also significant variation at the channel level. Of course, online was booming, but restaurants completely shut down, right? And there was also certain regions in the US were put under lockdown sooner and some later on. All of that posed a massive problem for this company to just manage their supply chain. And the problem was further accentuated by the fact that this was fresh produce, right? So which meant that they only had so many days between getting the raw material to converting that into finished products. And even once the finished product was made, you can't really stock it for a long time because the clock is ticking. So we created a dynamic demand forecasting solution relevant for COVID. So typical forecasting solutions would use internal data, such as the number of shipments that have gone out, some syndicated data around how much sales are happening at different stores. Maybe sales from e-commerce channels. But what we added were COVID-19 data points. So things like mobility index, government actions around how more lockdowns are expected to be put in place. We also understood and added in consumer preferences. So what consumers are saying in terms of their spend going forward, what categories are they cutting back spend on, and of course macroeconomic indicators, etc. Based on all of that, the customers got up to 96% accurate forecasts at a brand, category, geographic region or market, and a channel level. So how much sales, how much of, let's say, a fruit bowl would we sell over the next 4 to 8 to 12 weeks on e-commerce channel within, let's say, Illinois, as an example, right? And that was really, really powerful. Plus, they were also able to simulate different scenarios based on inputs that their sales team were getting from talking to other retailers or their customers. So great solution that the company used to really drive their S&OP process, their sales planning and financial planning. I spoke about digital sales enablement. So most of the CPG companies, as get bulk of their sales through a field sales team, also called account teams. With the onset of COVID, there were travel restrictions put in, right? And sales teams were unable to travel and meet clients. So this company, which is an alcoholic beverage company, had recently launched a B2B sales website, but really took this opportunity to really leverage this channel and accelerate development. And where we came in was we helped identified customer segments that were most likely to place orders online. And then further, there was initially a little bit of reluctance from the sales people to leverage this channel because they also saw this as a threat. But that's the beauty of analytics, because our analysis showed to them that customers who actually transact both online as well as offline tend to spend more money, and hence you have a higher share of wallet. And that really, really just brought all the sales team together. And there was a big adoption of this channel, and they've continued to see growth during the pandemic and further now. And as as I just mentioned, analytics had a big role to play over that.
And if we were to take a look under the hood, especially as this is a tech podcast, can you tell me a little bit more about the technology that makes all this possible? Because I suspect that we will have a lot of business leaders listening, thinking this sounds great, it's a great idea. They'll go to the IT guy who's going to have a whole heap of questions for them.
How much time do we have? You could really have an entire episode dedicated to this, if not more. But I'll try to. I like to think about it as a 3-layered cake, right? Yeah. Who doesn't like a cake after all? So, the bottom layer is what I call the data layer. As I said, it need not be bottom up; it could be left to right as well. But this is the layer where you ingest data from all the different data sources. It could be internal data sources. It could be streaming data coming from social media websites. It could be sensor data, and then a lot of external data as well. We're talking about technology and platforms such as SQL Server, Snowflake, Teradata, MongoDB, SAP HANA, and then the list is endless. But you try to connect data where it can be, and cleanse it and prepare it where it can actually be leveraged as an asset for further analysis, right? The second layer is what I call the analytics or compute layer. And this is where, in a way, the magic starts to happen, where you start identifying trends and patterns and correlations, uh, start developing predictive models, running optimizations and simulations to really cull out the key insights, right, and the hidden non-intuitive patterns from this data. And the way you do it is by using tools and technologies such as R, Python, Alteryx, SAS, Google or Adobe Analytics, or what have you, and using all of these to write code to either develop statistical models, machine learning algorithms, and of course depending on the business problem, more advanced deep learning models, which then really starts to move into the realms of AI, right? And then the third layer, the top layer, is what I call the consumption layer. This is where the whatever analysis has been done, whatever insights you've identified, they need to be presented in a way that they can be consumed by the business teams, right? To make it easy for them to understand. So this is what I need to do, and that's often done through BI tools and platforms such as Tableau, Power BI, ClickView, MicroStrategy, and a lot of web-based dashboards as well. Now the cake could look slightly different depending on, are we talking about big data or smalls, whether it's, on cloud or on premise. And then you start getting into things like, whether you need a Spark cluster, you have to use PySpark, Cloudera, or whether, you have to work on an AWS setup, Google GCP, Microsoft Azure using SageMaker or whatnot. So again, as I said, it's an ever evolving, ever growing technology ecosystem. But the three layers is what kind of is how I try to simplify it.
Well, I'll be honest with you, data is often considered by many, including myself, as a very dry subject, but you had me at cake there. You got me straight on board. What a great way of bringing that to life. And you also mentioned there artificial intelligence. And I think many businesses are taking artificial intelligence and machine learning seriously. But what kind of challenges are companies facing when they're starting to deploy AI? Is there anything you can share around the kind of conversations that you're having with customers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there are four main challenges or four impediments, if you may, that prevent companies from really becoming AI driven. Right? Yeah. There is a lot of intent, but sometimes that intent is in bits and pockets. So companies who have an AI roadmap or an AI agenda with a strong executive sponsorship usually end up doing something meaningful in AI. Otherwise, as I said, it becomes just experiments being run individually in some teams, right? So that's an important requirement. The second I'd say is around data. Despite all these technology advancements, Neil, there are still a lot of legacy systems and legacy issues with respect to either databases or internal systems, and as a result of which data continues to sit in silos, and it's very hard to either bring that all together or even when it does, the quality is really bad, because of which it becomes then garbage in and garbage out, right? Yeah. Third is so having a good data ecosystem is important, because that also feeds into the need for training these AI models, which again we can talk about separately. The third is talent limitations. So either companies don't have enough talent to work on AI and analytics, or whatever talent they have, they're just so inundated with either pulling reports or again cleansing this data that they progress is not as fast as it should be. And then fourth, and last but certainly not least, is adoption. A lot of AI initiatives and outcomes fizzle out just because there is no adoption, and it doesn't end up becoming a decision support system for business teams, and hence, they might use it for a few weeks because there was their manager asked them to, but they quickly revert back to the old ways of doing things, and hence end-to-end adoption and is very, very important for it to be successful. So I think these are the four key challenges that prevents companies from really becoming AI driven and adopting AI.
And if we look beyond that, are there any other big tech trends that particularly excite you or that you're watching closely right now?
Yeah, there are three, of which one I don't fully understand, but I'll still share it. But the first one, and which kind of goes back to the AI point we spoke about earlier, is synthetic data, right? So one of the biggest challenges in developing highly accurate AI systems is, as I said, availability of data, but also availability of training data. But as you would know, ML models, machine learning algorithms, and AI models need to be trained on historical data. But often that historical data is not available in abundance. It's either insufficient or also fraught with privacy concerns. Synthetic data is in a way data that is real world like, but that is generated by AI algorithms, and hence that can really be used to expedite model development, model training, without the problems of dipping into historical data, which is already scarce, and also without really having to worry too much about the privacy concerns or information security concerns. So I think that's something that I'm very excited about. We've started to toy with synthetic data a little bit at the SmartCube as well, but excited to see how it becomes more and more mainstream. So that's one. The second is use of technology and analytics in the fight against climate change. I think climate change is real, and I think analytics has a huge role to play in this fight. This could be through using satellite imagery to understand deforestation and what does that mean for landslides or weather changes in general. I know there are studies going on around trying to understand the causes of the wildfires that you may have heard about or read about in California. And then reduction in carbon emissions in general, and there are many other applications. But very excited about how analytics can be used to either identify the problem, preferably before it happens, to simulate the impact of the problems on weather, and then trying to inform various mitigation plans. So that's the second area in tech that I'm quite excited about. And the third one, which I don't fully understand yet, is quantum computing. I think it's a very, very fascinating field. The fact that one qubit can actually represent the entire Wikipedia as an example, that's quite fascinating. And what does that mean for analytics and machine learning and AI is something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, but have keeping my keen eye on that.
Yeah, it's incredibly exciting time right now. And as for yourselves at the SmartCube, I imagine there's not too much that you can share, but is there anything you can share about your focus and what you're going to be working on next year?
I'd say there are three things. One is we continue to push the boundaries with respect to AI internally. We run a lot of experiments for our own capability and solution development, but also based on feedback that we get from the market. So, for example, predictive maintenance of windmills based on drone captured images, right? Yeah. Apart from that, we are also continuing to build our capabilities and rather strengthen our capabilities in the areas of digital analytics. As I mentioned, there is a huge demand for that. We've added tremendous value for our clients in this area, and that's an area that we'll continue to focus on next year. And then third is kind of at the front end and back end of analytics development, which is data engineering and model deployment and maintenance. So, we'll continue to strengthen our capabilities and focus on helping solve the data problems that clients have, because as we're seeing firsthand with a lot of our clients, that continues to be a big impediment for success. And then even when some models are developed, how do we work with them to make sure analytics is adopted, and hence the machine learning model deployment, maintenance, and working closely with clients to make sure that they continue to adopt those. Those are the three areas that we'll continue to focus on for next year at the SmartCube.
Excellent. Sounds like you're going to be incredibly busy. And we're coming full circle now. We began the podcast talking about your origin story, what put you on this path you're on today. And I'm going to have a little bit of fun with you and ask you what has been the soundtrack to that origin story. Is there a particular piece of music or a song that has accompanied you throughout your career, just helps you get your head in the zone? Is there a song and story you can share with us? And we'll add that song to our Spotify playlist.
I spent the first 25 years of my life in India. So the song that did get me going is really a Hindi song. Not sure whether it'll make the Spotify list or not, but it's the title track of a movie called Lakshya. And Lakshya basically means aim or target or goal in Hindi. And the song, it still gives me goosebumps, when I listen to it. It basically tells you that you have to keep going. There are no excuses. You have to find you find your goal. You have to achieve your target and aim. So that's something that's a song that I used to listen to a lot. But now I think it's a lot more some deep breathing and some meditative music that I listen to just to calm my mind. And maybe it's age catching up, but no, I think it's sometimes it varies based on what mood am I in. But it's these are the two things that I usually turn towards.
Well, I'm going to try and find that song, and I will proudly put it on the Spotify playlist for other people to listen. And I'm very conscious about getting as many different kind of genres on that playlist, and it's the story behind them as well, and what that song means to you. So I'll do my best to get that on the playlist. But before I let you go, for anyone just wanting to find out more about the SmartCube, or finding more about your work, or even contacting your team, what's the best starting point?
Yeah, the best starting point is our website. It's www.thesmartcube.com. There is an option to reach out to us through our website, and you can also follow us on our social media channels. So we are on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. That's how you can reach out to us.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily. I've learned myself so much about using data analytics to drive growth, including those use cases and examples that you use really brought everything to life. And you've left me wanting cake, which is the best compliment I can give you right now. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with me.
Thanks, Neil. Pleasure.
So many great takeaways from Nitin, and I cannot thank him enough for coming on the podcast today, sharing his story, and so many fantastic insights. And the fact that we're moving away from that loudest voice in the room, strongest personality in the room, and just making data-driven decisions, all based on data analytics, real information. But as always, let me know your thoughts. I want to give a very special shout out to my friends at Hirect, who are sponsoring the Tech Talks Daily podcast this month. I always say on every episode that technology works best when it brings people together. And the recruitment industry is one of those areas in need of an upgrade, because the headache of traditional hiring often involves countless emails, checking spam folders, and waiting around for replies. And Hirect are using technology to solve this very problem with the free app where recruiters can chat directly with candidates. And in doing so, they're no longer spending hours in their email and waiting around for responses, and can simply view resumes, exchange contact info, and then have an interview, all in seconds. And not only that, you get curated candidate recommendations, you can chat directly with candidates, and accelerate that hiring process up to 10 times faster. So not only is Hirect using technology and this smartphone app to solve these problems, they're using tech to bring people together. But best of all, the app is a free download on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So please check it out. Let me know your thoughts. And you can do that by emailing me at techblogwriter@outlook.com.